Hello and welcome to my November TBR slash journaling setup. I'm quite excited for this video because one, I always love journaling for you guys, and two, I feel like I'm back on my kick of reading. I lost momentum there in the middle of the year. However, with it being fall, it just means that it's extra special because fall is my favorite time of year. It's my favorite season. With that comes gloomier, colder days, which we won't really get in Florida until December, but it's fine. I'm so excited for my reading this month, and I cannot wait to talk through all the books that I have planned. I have 9 books on my TBR. Hopefully I read more. Will I read less? Potentially, we'll see. But without further ado, I want to go ahead and get started on talking through my TBR because that is what you're here for, not my random intro ramblings. The first book is The Lies of Locke, Lamora, and this has probably been on my TBR the longest out of any of these books. In fact, this has been on my TBR for 4 years now, 3 or 4 years. Ever since I had read and loved The Name of the Wind, people have been recommending Scott Lynch as the next author to kind of dive into in the next series, to dive into, seeing how they're both, incomplete and all. I have heard nothing but wonderful things about this book, and after reading a heist book recently that just did not hit, it felt like a bad ripoff of Six of Crows. I'm ready for a redemption in the realm of heist books. The thing that intrigues me the most about this book, other than like the heist aspect of it, is actually the characters that make up the Gentleman's Bastards. I've heard that the characters are absolutely wonderful and their dynamic is so fun and exciting, which is exactly what I look for in my books. I love some character-driven books where I can root for the characters and they all feel uniquely fleshed out with their own backstories and motives. So I cannot wait to get to know all of the characters and hopefully enjoy the story and the plot along the way. The next book is actually so fascinating because I wasn't drawn in by the cover or the synopsis. I mean, the synopsis after, yes, what am I saying here? The title is fascinating, and that's what drew me in the most, and it is Kitemaster, and of course the cover is also very pretty. Now, this is by Jim C. Hines, and I had never heard anything about this, but I saw this, I think, on Instagram while doing some perusing as one does, and it sounds so good. All right, you have kite ships. Kite ships. Guys. You know how I feel about boats. Put them in the air? Are you kidding me? I'm so excited. In this book, we are following Niall, who was revealed to be a kite master, which this world is apparently perpetually windy, which makes sense. So someone having the ability to control the spirit kites is a very valuable power. And there's someone trying to basically take over the skies, and it's a battle between, I guess, good and evil. But it also has a lot of undertones of grief, as Niall had lost her husband. That is when she was revealed to be the kite master. So while she's still struggling through the fact that she has lost her husband very, very young, she immediately was thrust into the role as someone who could save the sky from tyranny. And it's a lot to cope with. The magic and the world sounds so unique, and I really hope that the magic really shines through in this book, and I cannot wait to meet our characters and to just hopefully fall in love with this world in the skies. Switching gears a little bit away from novels, the next book on my TBR is actually a manga that really caught my eye, and that is Kamura. This follows the story about a boy who is born with a regular body, but then has, I think, a left arm of a dragon. Fascinating concept, quite frankly, and the art style is phenomenal. The artist is actually the same artist who did the Legend of Zelda mangas, which is kind of what captivated me in the first place, and the cover is phenomenal. The colors, the composition, everything about it is just stellar. So I will be buying a copy of this book and giving it a read, and it's the first volume out as well. So if I enjoy it, I'll be able to, enjoy the volumes as they come out instead of being crazy and binging a bunch of volumes all in one go, which there's nothing wrong with, okay? That's how I fell in love with Frieren, and I will take no critiques. The next book I want to talk about is actually a more recent release. It came out in July, and that is Arcana Academy by Elise Kova. The concept of this book sounds amazing. I have been dying to read something with card magic. I didn't end up reading One Dark Window. Let me know if I should, because I've heard so many mixed things about One Dark Window, and I haven't actually taken the plunge into diving into it. But in this book, it's tarot card magic, and our main character Clara actually was inking some tarot cards and got caught and thrown into jail because that power is specifically reserved for people who are practitioners at the academy. But then, just when she thinks her luck has run dry, a prince comes in and offers her a deal to set her free, but she has to help steal a card from the king. The caveat to that is, in order to stay under the radar, they have to get married. So we have a little bit of like a marriage of convenience. I assume that there will also be some heavy romance in this book. And sorry, I'm just like overwhelmed by the thought of owning this book, because also the cover is phenomenal and I cannot wait to own it. And I really, really, really hope that it delivers, because everything about this book is screaming that I will like it. So everything is dependent on whether or not Elise Kova delivers. And also I just double checked the blurb, and apparently Clara hates the prince for some reason. So I suppose there's also like this enemies to lovers, marriage of convenience, what have you situation. So yes, it will be heavily focusing some romance, and I love me a good enemies to lovers. So fingers crossing, it is in fact a good enemies to lovers. The next book is actually a new release. It doesn't come out until about the middle of November, and that is An Academic Affair by Jodi McAllister. Now, funnily enough, this book also has like a marriage of convenience situation, and also unrelated, but the book I'm reading right now also has a situation where they accidentally get married. So I don't know what it is about all these books and people getting married, but we'll see if I'm here for it. We're following Sadie and Jonah, who have been academic rivals, as one may assume, and they're both after this very coveted position. I'm assuming at some sort of like literary thing, because they said that they were both undergrad like literary students, so it didn't like dive into like what job they're after in particular. But apparently this job either will hire one person or they'll hire partners, which someone please let me know if that's like an actual thing and if it's like legal or not. It just sounds so ridiculous. So in order to get that spot and have them both get jobs, they are going to get married. And hence the story, I guess, unfolds between these two. It says in the blurb, it's for fans of Ali Hazelwood, which makes sense, and then Abby Jimenez, which are two authors that I do pretty much enjoy. And I am very interested to see how Jodi McAllister delivers this story, and I'm kind of excited. The next book is on my fall TBR, and I do want to tackle that, you know, before the season is over. And that is Where the Dark Stands Still by A.B. Poranek, and this is also on loan from the library, so I do have a deadline about how long I can hold on to this book. So November is kind of it, so I need to read this book before I have to return it, of course. In this book, we are following Liska, and she makes a deal with a demon, but she soon discovers that many of her predecessors have also struck bargains, only to mysteriously vanish. It's a lot about unraveling some secrets and discovering what has happened to her predecessors and what is going to happen to her. I've heard this is very magical, sort of Ghibli inspired. I've heard mixed things about the Ghibli comparisons, but I feel like a lot of books do the whole like Ghibli comparison just when they're like even the slightest bit like whimsical or magical. And I'm intrigued to see how I feel about it. I don't know if it'll be exactly up my alley or not. It feels like it's kind of like halfway in, halfway out of a sort of story that I would enjoy. So hopefully it leans more towards the side of enjoyment rather than not. The next book is actually a memoir, which I don't ever typically put on TBRs. However, it's coming out in November, and that is Bottom of the Pyramid. If you don't know, Nia was on Dance Moms and had quite literally a horrible time. I think everyone on that show was like terribly abused in so many ways. And I'm fascinated to see her story because she seems like such an eloquent and well-spoken. She's older now. I don't even know how old she is. She's in her early 20s, I believe. And I just can't wait to see what she has written. I think I'm probably going to listen to the audiobook just because I love when authors who write memoirs like narrate their own story. The last memoir that I read, I think, was Jeanette McCurdy's, and I think that was 3 years ago. And that book was definitely an interesting case of, it was such a well-told memoir, and it was also so heartbreaking but so good at the same time. And it's weird to like comment on a book about a person's life because that's their life, like that's their experiences. And I'm just so curious to see, especially as someone who grew up doing sports, but obviously not like in the limelight or anything like that. I'm just really curious to see how her dynamic and her relationship with dance is. I haven't really kept up with a lot of like Dance Moms things. I watched a few seasons when I was younger, but never like watched everything. And it's just like all about, you know, the drama. So I'm really curious to see, with like a layer of that peeled back, what her experience was like. And then the next book is Carl. We'll put Carl 6 and 7. I'm in the middle of 6, so I'm hoping I can get to 7. Because, guys, I put my dad on this series a few months ago, and now he's ahead of me in the series. And he's giving me all these, like, not really, like, spoilers, but just, like, you're not even ready for the ending of book 6. It gets so good and it starts tying back to like earlier books. Oh my gosh. And I'm like, how did this happen? How did I allow my father to outpace me and Carl? I cannot stand for that. And so I'm really, really hoping that in November I can finish listening to the audiobooks. I already own them. So I just need to get on that and finish listening to them because I cannot let him beat me to the end of this series, although he may. And there's only 7 books out right now and there's going to be 10. So technically he can't outpace me forever. I will catch up. So I had to put Carl on here. If you don't know what Dungeon Crawler Carl is about, it is about a man named Carl who basically gets shoved into this intergalactic game show dungeon crawl with his ex-girlfriend's cat, Princess Donut, who then has the ability to speak, shoot lasers from her eyes. She wears a tiara and sunglasses. She's amazing. Okay, the entire story has been so fun. It's a lit RPG, so I can't say that this genre is for everyone. If you don't like the first like 10-ish chapters, you're not gonna like the series. If you don't like the writing style, if you don't like Matt Denneman's humor, it's not gonna be a series for you. But fortunately for me, I'm obsessed with Carl, and I cannot wait to see where this leads to. The deeper we get down on each level of the dungeon, like the more intense things become, the more characters we get to meet, the stakes are higher, and I'm so excited to catch up with the series and then, sit and twiddle my thumbs until the later books release. The next book is by an author I never thought I'd pick up again, because unlike Katie, who's determined to find her 5-star T. Kingfisher book, I've given T. Kingfisher, I believe, 2 chances, and both were extreme misses for me. Her fairy tale retellings and like the darker versions, they're not really my cup of tea. However, Swordheart is a fantasy romance, and I'm really curious to see how I feel about it because there's a sentient sword. Or I don't know if it's a sentient sword, but rather a person who was trapped in the sword and is basically tasked with protecting whoever wields the sword. And the stakes for Hella, our main character, is the fact that she has come into a lot of money and her relatives want a piece of the pie and I guess are determined to make her life hell. So I'm really curious to see what I think about this. The cover redesign is honestly phenomenal, but this is not. I'm sorry, I just need a moment. They're so ugly, guys, and I'm so sorry you had to see them. I need books to stop spraying edges, quite frankly. I am so over it in so many ways, and I could talk about it for so long, but solid sprayed edges add absolutely nothing to a book other than upping its value for, I'm sure, the production costs. Very, very little. And they typically always look like garbage. And they'll fade and get worn, and I don't understand what is happening in the book industry because I hate them so much. Bring back special editions being special because I feel like we're just getting books sold to us for a much higher price point, and that's all we get. What are we doing? But you know what? I didn't buy it. This is from the library, so the library can go back to having this ugly situation on its shelves, and I don't have to, but I do have to look at them while I'm reading, unfortunately. Those are all 9 of the books on my TBR for November. I was going to put a 10th book on there, but I didn't want y'all to clown me. But it was going to be Oathbringer. Whether it happens or not, do not hold me to it, okay? But a girl can dream, okay? And she can also continually put Oathbringer on every single month's TBR. I don't want to hear a word out of any of y'all, okay? But pretend you didn't hear me about that, okay? I don't want y'all clowning me in the comments. We are going to move on and set up my journal, which is always a fun time. I love fall in my journal because I get to use all the autumnal stickers that I've collected throughout the year and the autumnal washi tape, which if you saw a couple videos ago, the washi tape shop actually sent me some, and I'm going to be probably using some more in my journal this month. And as a note, if you do want any washi tape, you can go to thewashitape.com and use my code Cassandra10 to save yourself some money. But before you go and do that, let's go ahead and set up my November TBR journal spread. I really hope that you enjoyed how my journal turned out, and I hope that you got some inspiration for your own journal, as well as some inspiration perhaps for your November or autumnal TBR. I know I have the problem of watching other people's TBRs, and I just keep adding on to my own, so sorry about that, but unfortunately the endless TBR is a plight that I'm sure we all share. Thank you so much for watching, and I do really hope to see you in my next one. Toodles!